I, female, 19, earned a full-ride merit scholarship. My parents demanded I share it with my older brother, male, 21, for fairness. Then I discovered they'd already drained the college fund in my name to pay for his tuition, a car for commuting, and some suspicious house expenses. When I refused to hand over my refund stipend, they tried to intercept my aid, and things escalated to credit freezes, a tenant's office, a financial aid appeal, and a very awkward family meeting where I learned a lot about 529 plans and how many relatives think fair means from the girl who planned ahead. I am female, 19, freshman, at a state flagship on a full-ride merit scholarship. It covers tuition plus standard housing plus meal plan, and I get a modest refund stipend each term for books and required fees because of how cost of attendance math works. I also work 10 hours a week at the campus writing center because I like other people's commas. My brother Evan, male, 21, is a junior at a private university 2 hours away. He's smart and charismatic and says things like, "I'll network my way into the job market." The way some people say, "I'll be on The Voice." Growing up, our parents framed us as the balanced set. He was the natural leader. I was the planner. Translation, he got spotlights and allowances. I color-coded my future to stay out of the blast radius. Money context, my parents started an education fund when we were kids. In the US, it's usually a 529 plan. They told relatives to contribute at birthdays instead of toys. When I was 16, Dad's self-employed contractor said the market tanked and our college savings took a hit, which I accepted because the market does rude things. When I got the full ride, they sighed with relief. "Honey, this saves the family." I didn't ask follow-up questions because I was vibrating with joy and trying to find twin Excel sheets that didn't feel like sand. Fast forward to August move-in. I buy my own laptop with graduation money, get my ID card, and cry into a burrito because I'm a tenderflower. 2 weeks into the semester, Mom calls. "About your refund check, we'll need to split that with your brother. His tuition bill is intense this term and it's only fair since your college is covered." I said, "That refund is for books and required costs." "The scholarship rules literally say I can't gift it to someone else," Mom said. "We're a family, not a corporation. We'll square it on our taxes." I asked how taxes square feelings into scholarship bylaws. She said I was being difficult. Dad got on speaker and said, "We carried you both for years. Time to carry your brother." They made it sound like I owed back rent on childhood. I told them no for the first time in my life and felt my body discover a new vertebra. They hung up to cool down. 15 minutes later, Evan texted, "You know I wouldn't ask, but it's rough." The counselor, saint in sensible shoes, explained that 1, merit scholarships with refund stipends are mine to use on allowable educational expenses. 2, I can set up direct deposit so no checks go home. 3, I should consider a FERPA PIN if I want to restrict parental access to my educational records. And 4, if I feel financial pressure at home, the Student Support Office has emergency grants and legal clinics. She said the sentence that became my lighthouse. No one is owed your scholarship. I set up direct deposit and a campus mailbox. I also asked about the 529. Could I see disbursements made for me? The counselor said I'd need the account owner parent to give me statements. I texted Mom, "For my budgeting class project, could I see the education fund statements from the last 3 years? She replied, "We'll talk Sunday." Sunday became Thanksgiving because avoidance is a family sport. Meanwhile, the text continued. "Mom, we already ordered Evan's books. Send what you can. Dad, don't be petty about the label. Money is money. Evan, I'll pay you back once I get the internship. I did the thing where you put your phone face down and clean your sink like it owes you an apology." 2 weeks later, I went home for fall break. The living room had that familiar vibe of staged normalcy. Mom handed me a plate of cookies. Nobody ate. Dad launched into a speech about equity. We didn't give him more. We gave him what he needed. You need less because of your scholarship. Family means we win, I said. I agree that we win, but my scholarship isn't a joint account. I asked again to see the 529 statements. Dad said, "It's all one pot." Mom added, "We had to repair the roof last year. Are you saying you didn't benefit from a dry home?" "Did the 529 pay for the roof?" I asked, trying not to sound like a ferret with receipts. Silence. Dad said, "We'll print things later." Later packed a suitcase and moved to January. Back on campus, my refund hit $612.18. I bought lab goggles that don't decapitate me and the online access code for stats, which feels like extortion. But I love the homework hints. I kept every receipt. I started a Google folder called Scholarship Boundaries. It has a picture of a fence as the cover. I am that girl. Then came Thanksgiving, turkey, mashed guilt, and the big conversation. Even announced his spring tuition shortfall like the weather. It's $3,800 after aid. I can cover $600 from my campus job, so we need to bridge $3,200. Dad said, we propose you contribute your refunds this year should be about $1,200 total, plus let the family borrow from your summer savings. We'll pay it back when the business settles. I asked what business was settling. He said, cash flow is tight. Mom added, we paid a semester for you out of pocket when you were in high school doing community college classes. That came from the 529, so technically you owe the 529 before it owes you. I said, I was dual enrolled. The state covered tuition. You paid fees and gas. Mom said, then be grateful. Evan softened his voice. He's good at voices and said, I'm not trying to be a leech. I'm asking for teamwork. The word team did something to my blood pressure. Teamwork, I said, would have been asking before taking from the 529 in my name if that happened. Can I please see the statements? Dad stood up and went to his office. I watched Mom avoid my eyes by adjusting a centerpiece that didn't need adjusting. Evan stared at his nails. Dad returned with a manila folder that looked tired. He handed me 3 statements and said, this is all I could find right now. The statements showed distributions labeled with my beneficiary name, but the payees were my brother's university, a dealership roof, and a home improvement store. One note said, education-related transportation. Another said, household emergency. I looked at my mother the way you look at a magician who pulls a rabbit from your wallet. She said, the car was for his commute. We had to replace the roof before it collapsed. We always planned to rebalance once we knew your scholarship was real. Dad said, we change the beneficiary sometimes to optimize taxes. It's legal. I Googled on my phone under the table. Yes, the account owner can change the beneficiary in a 529 among family. It can be legal. But my face did a math that wasn't about law. It was about trust. I said very calmly, here's my boundary. I will not transfer my refunds or summer savings to cover Evan's tuition. My scholarship is mine per the donor's terms. I will not be party to any misuse. You're accusing us? I said. I'm describing facts, distributions in my name spent on non-educational items, and a demand I share scholarship funds that aren't transferable. That's misuse to me. Dad said, if you take that tone, you can pay your own phone and insurance. I said okay. It wasn't a flinch. It was a decision. I went back to campus on Friday. At financial aid Monday morning, I asked about locking down everything. FERP a restriction. Done, direct deposit confirmed, campus mailbox verified, identity protection tips from the student legal clinic. They recommended a credit freeze with the 3 bureaus, so I did that too. I asked if my parents could intercept aid by changing my address on file. The counselor smiled. Not with your PIN and the FERPA block you just set. That afternoon, I called my phone provider and car insurance and moved both into my name. It hurt, but the hurt felt like a gin day for my spine. Evan texted that night. Why are you making this hostile? I replied. Because I'm done letting my planning subsidize your spontaneity. He sent a thumbs down. Then you'll regret burning bridges. I put the phone face down and read 6 pages of cell biology I'll forget in an hour because adrenaline hates mitochondria. 3 days later, Mom sent a group text, family meeting on Sunday. Aunt Lydia will be there. She knows about 529s. If a sentence ever came with popcorn, it was that one. Update 1, family meeting, the 529, the car, and the fairness. Math Sunday, dining room. Aunt Lydia arrived with a binder like a TB lawyer. She used to work in banking and says things like liquidity event at breakfast. She hugged me first. We are huggers with a healthy boundary clause and said, let's talk structure. Dad began, we love both children equally. We had to make hard choices. The car was necessary for Evan to commute. The roof leak was urgent. We always intended to replenish the fund. Aunt Lydia held up a hand. Who is the owner of the 529? Dad, I am. Mom, joint. Lydia, okay. Did you change the beneficiary from child A to child B? Dad, sometimes. Lydia, did you use 529 funds for a vehicle and home repair? Dad, it's related to education? Lydia, no. That's a non-qualified distribution. You would owe tax and a penalty on the earnings portion. Did you file that? Silence. Mom said, it's complicated. Lydia said, the IRS is complicated. Facts are not. Evan jumped in. This is turning me into a villain. I didn't ask for a car. Dad said it made sense. Dad nodded, grateful for backup. His campus parking is expensive, he added, as if that were a sacrament. Lydia asked me to outline my requests. I said, 1. No more attempts to collect my refunds. 2. No more distributions from any account in my name for anyone else's expenses. 3. Transparency. Full statements of the 529 since I was 15. 4. If the fifth 29 is empty because it was used for non-qualified purposes, I need that acknowledged so I can make financial decisions going forward without phantom savings. 5. No one uses my identity to apply for loans. Mom clutched a tissue into a lace. Dad said, "You think we'd steal from you?" Lydia said calmly, "You already redirected funds meant for her education to other purposes. You may have had reasons, but that's the definition." Dad tried a new angle. "What about fairness? If we hadn't saved for you, you wouldn't have gotten merit aid. We paid for test prep summer programs." I said, "You also paid for Evan's leadership camps, college visits, and Greek fees when he joined." "Where's my fairness slice of that?" Evan said. "Those build networking." I said, "So do books I can afford without begging." Aunt Lydia, saint, again, suggested a plan. 1. Parents produce full statements and calculate penalties owed for non-qualified distributions. 2. Parents commit in writing to stop requesting my scholarship funds and to not use my identity for any loans. 3. Evan and I separately talk to financial aid at our schools to optimize aid without mythical family subsidies. 4. We revisit in 30 days with actual numbers. Dad said we were turning a family dinner into a deposition. Lydia said, "Then bring evidence and it won't feel like questioning." Meeting adjourned with tension you could spread on toast. Back on campus, I filed a fraud alert with the credit bureaus, not because I knew they'd try something, but because I didn't want to find out the hard way. I also asked my school to add a note that no third party is authorized to pick up checks or documents for me. The bursar smiled like I'd asked for 12 cats and said, "Of course." A week later, my campus mailbox had an empty envelope, slit clean, addressed to me in my mother's handwriting. Nothing inside. It looked like a prop. I took a photo, then took it to campus police. Because if you think you're in a movie, involve the people who write reports. That same day, Evan posted an Insta story of a new monitor and gaming chair with the caption, "Self-care." I stared at it until the pixels rearranged into the word priorities. I muted him for a day because my blood sugar cannot handle living in all caps. Mom texted, "Your attitude is breaking this family." I did not reply because I was at work telling a sophomore that semicolons are not commas as swords, and it felt holy. Then Aunt Lydia called. 2 things, she said. 1. I got your father to send statements. It isn't pretty. 2. Your grandmother left a small trust intended to pay for your books and lab fees the year you started school. Your father acted as trustee and paid Evan's parking permit and 2 fraternity dues instead. I sat down on the library steps and watched people living their unlawsuited lives. "Is that legal?" "It's trust misuse," she said. "Not a felony in the way people think TV works, but actionable in probate court. I'm not saying sue your parents. I'm saying you have leverage to get them to stop." We sent it the next morning. A clean 1-page demand that A. They cease any attempts to obtain my scholarship refunds, B. Acknowledge in writing the non-qualified uses of the 529 and trust, and C. Reconstitute the trust with the remaining funds for my book slabs this year, or we would seek mediation. "No threats, just nouns," Dad replied. "I refuse to be shaken down by my own child." Mom replied, "You let your aunt poison you." Evan sent a dagger wrapped in a smile. "If you didn't want to help, you could have just said, 'All this paperwork makes you look greedy.'" I wanted to send a photo of my $170 access code for stats with the caption "Greed," but I didn't. I wrote, "I'm protecting my education the way you protect your internship pipeline." He left me on scene. 2 days later, Aunt Lydia forwarded me an email. It was from Dad to her, CC Mom, BCC, with the subject "Re-Family" and the line, "Fine, we'll return what remains in Nana's trust to my name for this year's books, but tell her we are disappointed." I printed it and taped it inside my scholarship boundaries folder like a badge. I also applied to be a resident assistant for next year. If I get it, I'll get free housing and a small stipend, which means the scholarship's housing portion becomes a cash refund I can use for savings and study abroad instead of letting it confuse my parents into thinking it's their line item. That night, I blocked everyone on my Venmo except 3 friends and my campus job. The next morning, a 1-cent transfer request arrived anyway from an account named Dad2. The memo said, "Test." I declined and reported it, then laughed so hard I scared a squirrel. The bursar called me the Monday after Lydia's email victory lap. "Hi, quick note, someone phoned claiming to be your parent requesting to change your address and hold any refunds for pickup. We have AFERP a block, so we declined. Just confirming you didn't request that." I thanked them like they had pulled me from a river. I walked straight to student legal. The attorney on duty, grad student with a tie that knew jazz, said, "Document it all. You've already done the most important direct deposit FERPA credit freeze. Add a ISPs. Hold on your home address during refund weeks if you want extra belt and suspenders. And send your parents a written notice. All school finances go to you directly. Attempts to intercept will be treated as identity misuse." He dictated a crisp paragraph. I sent it. It felt like floss for my boundaries. That evening, Dad texted, "We'll forgive your tone if you pitch in for February. Your mother is exhausted." I replied with exactly one sentence. "My scholarship cannot be shared per donor rules. Please stop asking." At Thanksgiving, too. Extended family, now with extra folding chairs. Aunt Lydia took me aside before dessert and whispered, "There's more." She had obtained legally, because she is legendary, a copy of the trust from the county clerk. It specified my name as the sole education beneficiary for first-year expenses only. Total, $2,000. Actual disbursements, $1,200 to Evans fraternity, $415 to campus parking, $315 miscellaneous. Remaining, $0. "Do you want to make a thing of it?" she asked. I thought of the way Mom looked at me like I was an ungrateful algorithm. I thought of Evan's ridiculous chair labeled self-care. I thought of my future self, who perhaps wants to remember I didn't set my life on fire for $2 if it cost me peace. "I want it acknowledged and stopped," I said. "If we can do that without court, I'm good," Lydia nodded. "Then let's use the word accountability and not punishment." We drafted a second letter. "Thank you for confirming the trust is exhausted. Please acknowledge that non-beneficiaries receive disbursements and commit to no further use of funds in my name. Also, confirm in writing that you will not attempt any address or pickup changes for my school accounts." We sent it. Dad replied with a classic, "We will no longer engage through lawyers." Lydia texted me, "He thinks I'm your lawyer. I'm your aunt with a binder." Back at school, it was midterms. Statistics tried to gently kill me. In the downtime between crying over integrals, I learned 3 professional phrases that make people behave. Put that in writing, per our conversation, and, as previously stated, I used them liberally. Then Evan called at 11:22 p.m. Drama prefers midnight. He skipped hello. "I'm withdrawing next semester if you won't help." Silence did a full yoga flow. "That's your choice," I said finally. "Maybe take a semester at the community college near home. Save money. Knock out Gen Eds." He laughed like I'd suggested living on Mars. "That's social suicide." "I'm not your pre-team," I said. "I'm your sister. I want you educated without our parents' house as collateral." I had learned about Parent Plus loans the hard way. The numbers are a horror film. Community colleges transfer. Nobody cares at graduation. Employers care about skills and stories. "You're good at stories." He hung up. Mom texted, "I can't believe you want your brother to be a dropout." "Dad, we did everything for you, and this is the thanks." I wrote, "I want Evan to get a degree he can afford." That includes not siphoning the sister who cleaned motel rooms the summer she was 17 to pay for her AP tests. Yes, that was me. Best forearm workout of my life. The next day, a padded envelope arrived at my campus mailbox. Inside, a budget notebook with 6 envelopes labeled groceries, gas, misc, giving, savings, Evan. Mom had drawn hearts around the last one. I wanted to scream and I wanted to laugh, and I did neither because my roommate June was napping and she can sleep through an earthquake, but not my family. June opened one eye. "Do you want a cookie or a knife?" She's a poet. I said knife, but cookie. We made tea and I wrote a response I didn't send. My envelopes are labeled books, transit, emergency, therapy, boundaries, peace. 2 weeks later, financial aid emailed that my scholarship's donor had invited recipients to a breakfast with alumni. I RSVP'd for the free bagels and awkward small talk. The keynote alum woman in a navy blazer that looked like competence said something that reached into my ribcage. "When you receive a scholarship, the contract is between you and the future. Be a good steward. That does not mean you owe your past." I cried into my orange juice in the quiet way. After breakfast, I asked the donor's rep a hypothetical: "If a scholar is pressured to transfer funds to another student, is there a process?" She said, "We investigate. The scholarship isn't fungible. The donor intends you to finish school. If anyone attempts interference, we can intervene quietly." I thanked her and felt 10 pounds lighter. Then the bursar called again. "We had someone at the window today saying they were your father and trying to pick up your form 1098-T and any checks. We told him no and noted your file." I pictured Dad standing at the glass like a man at a bank in an old movie. I mailed the IRS form to my campus mailbox and asked the bursar to shred any future physical checks if a direct deposit were to fail. They agreed. I brought them cookies. The circle of life. In January, I got the RA position. Free housing next year, small stipend, and access to storage shaped like a closet from Narnia. I called June. We screamed. I texted Aunt Lydia. She responded with a gif of a woman stapling a document triumphantly. I told Mom and Dad the next day with a careful email. "This affects my cost of attendance and thus how my scholarship disperses. I'll continue to manage my funds directly. You do not need to adjust anything." Mom wrote back, "We're so proud. Could your refund this term help with Evan's books?" Reader, I did not flip my laptop. I replied with a sentence I could say in my sleep: "My scholarship funds may only be used for my allowable educational expenses per the donor and school." Evan texted, "Congrats on being paid to boss freshman." I said, "Congrats on having a sister who won't let you tank your credit by proxy." He sent a single cry laugh emoji. Progress or sarcasm? With my family, the emoji is Schrodinger's cat. In late January, Aunt Lydia hosted a mediation night at her house. Cookies again. It's our family currency. Dad came with a folder, Mom came with a tissue, Evan came with his hoodie that says his university in letters that cost a used car. Lydia opened, "We need closure. Here's what we're proposing." She handed out a one-page agreement. Now, parents acknowledge the non-qualified uses of the 529 and the misapplication of the small trust. Mom parents agree to no further attempts to intercept or request OPS scholarship funds, refunds, or accounts. Evan agrees he will not request OPS funds directly or via parents. Agrees she will not publicly shame anyone, but reserves the right to protect her accounts, scholarships, and credit. After this, we all dropped the topic outside necessary updates. Dad read it like a menu with no prices. "I won't sign a confession. Lydia, it's an acknowledgement of facts already in documents. This avoids probate or other legal action." Mom said, "The language is harsh," Lydia said. "I softened it 3 times. Evan asked, tentative, "What if I withdraw this semester and restart at state in the fall? Will you not hate me?" He looked at me like he hadn't looked since we were kids building forts. I felt a bubble of love I thought had hardened. "I don't hate you," I said. "I hate the system that made you think prestige is oxygen. If you come to state and we get coffee and you tell me your plan that isn't my wallet, I'll be the loudest person cheering." He nodded. Mom sniffed. Dad stared at the table like it had betrayed him by being wood. He didn't sign that day. He didn't sign the next. He signed a modified version a week later. No explicit wording about non-qualified, but a promise to stop contacting my school and to leave my refunds alone. Lydia said, "It's not poetry." I took a picture of the signature and put it in my folder under a tab called "When People Keep Their Word." February thawed into a slush that smells like cafeteria fries and possibility. Evan called, "I talked to admissions at state. They'll take most of my credits if I complete the semester." It's enforceable enough. If I transfer in the fall, I lose the Greek dues, but I could work on campus and maybe TA for a freshman seminar. "Do you think I'll be a joke?" I told him the truth. "Only to people you don't need. The people you want will ask you about your projects and your work ethic." He didn't ask me for money. In March, financial aid emailed an update to my award due to RA housing next year. My scholarship would now send a larger refund each term for allowable expenses because housing is covered by RA. I read the email 3 times and heard my mother's voice in my head, "Share." I wrote a new voice over it, "Save." I opened a high-yield savings, no fee, decent APY called Grad School or RAIN. I set an auto-transfer on refund day. He typed K. In April, a letter arrived from the 529 plan administrator addressed to Dad as owner. Aunt Lydia had asked them to send a year-end summary. He forwarded a copy to me with a 1-line note. "For your records." It showed $0 balance. I said, carefully honest, "By keeping excellent grades, doing tutoring, and ensuring the funds are used only for my education." She nodded. "That's the job." She asked about obstacles. I said, "Family expectations sometimes interpret merit as communal." She smiled with her eyes. "We see that a lot." "You're doing the right thing." Finals arrived like a marching band. I studied, I slept, I ate apples like I was auditioning for a cider commercial. I got A's I earned without owing anyone a piece of my name. I mailed a thank you card to the donor with a photo of me at the writing center and a note that said, "Your support lets me be useful to other students. Thank you for investing in the boring parts of hard work." I mean that with my whole person. The glamorous part of scholarships is headlines. The real part is Tuesday afternoons where you can afford the textbook and the bus to the tutoring job. The summer plan, full-time at the campus library, circulation desk, I'm the one who knows you mean that book with the blue cover, plus a side gig doing copy edits for a grad lab's manuscripts. I built a budget that looks like a puzzle with all the corners already found. I paid my phone and insurance myself. I titled a new envelope Peace. June. Evan texted a photo of his acceptance to state as a transfer. I sent all caps. He added, "Got a $2 departmental scholarship for a writing project. Guess who helped me with the essay?" I did. The night we FaceTimed and I bullied him into cutting the paragraph where he compared himself to Elon Musk. "We are a Tesla-free family, spiritually." He wrote instead about failing well. The committee liked that. We celebrated at Aunt Lydia's with a cake that said recalculating like a GPS. Mom and Dad came. Mom cried, messy, relief cry, not performance. Dad handed me an envelope with $300 and said 4 books. I almost refused on principle, then decided to accept with a single rule, no strings. "Thank you," I said. He nodded. It felt like weather changing, not climate. "I'll take weather." In July, I got an email from financial aid, a flag on my account. My stomach fell through a trapdoor. I went in person, ready to prepare for war. The counselor said, "It's not bad, just a random verification. Bring your receipts for this year's allowable expenses and your bank statements showing the refund deposited. We'll check a box." I brought my folder with its fence picture. The counselor laughed kindly. "You're my favorite type of student." 10 minutes later, the flag was gone. August, move in for my RA job. I have a floor of 18 freshmen and a box of door decorations with puns. I wield construction paper like a sword. I give a talk about budgets and boundaries during orientation week, coded as "How to Not Cry Over Pizza." I say, if you got aid, learn your terms. If someone pressures you to share what is not shareable, find an adult who will back you. 3 girls nod like I'm reading their group chat. September, Evan starts at state. He sends a selfie on the quad with a caption, "Day 1, no frat, full spine." He asks if I want to get coffee after my shift. We sit under a tree and agree not to talk about money for exactly 1 hour. We fail at minute 20 but laugh about it. He tells me his new advisor said, "Transfer students have grit," he said. "My sister taught me that." I tell him he taught me voice, how to ask for what you want even when your plan B is the alphabet. October, midterms again. Life is circles. I want to be the person who tells a kid with a refund check and a family and a panicked group chat that they are the steward and no one is owed the oxygen that keeps their future lit. November, I go home for Thanksgiving without a knot in my stomach. Mom asked me to cut the turkey because my wrists are strong from all that studying. Dad shows me a spreadsheet of his business now that he's actually tracking things. He says, "We're refinancing the house in a way that doesn't require plus loans for anyone, ever again." It feels like a man learning a second language at 50 and choosing to practice. We go around the table saying what we're grateful for. Evan says scholarships. Mom says siblings. Dad says spreadsheets. I say boundaries. We all laugh. It's not tidy. There's still a stain on the tablecloth from a fight we had last year that I don't think will ever wash out. But the food is warm and the house is a house, not a ledger, and nobody asks me to split my lungs. A week later, I get a campus email. "I've been selected to speak at a donor luncheon in spring. 5 minutes on stage. Talk about what the scholarship made possible," the coordinator writes. I draft a line that is true without being a subtweet. "Your gift didn't just pay bills, it paid for permission to keep the promises I made to my future self. I'll wear the navy blazer I thrifted for $12 that looks like competence." I will not invite my parents to that lunch because our peace is real but fragile. I will send them a photo after with a caption that says, "Thank you for letting me handle my education." If they reply, "Proud," I will allow it to sit in my inbox like a warm rock. When I walk back to my dorm, I pass the financial aid office and put a sticky note on the bulletin board that says, "If you need help with refunds, FERPA, 529s, or words, find me in Hall C, Floor 3, Op." A freshman with anxious eyebrows pulls the note down as I'm sticking it. "Is this real?" she asks. "Yes," I say. "So are you."